June 16th is the next day of importance in the 2026 primary election calendar. On this day, two states, Alabama and Georgia, will have their runoff elections. Alabama didn't have any approved candidates going into their runoff, but more troubling is the fact that despite their primary election on May 19th, the results in 4 of those districts are being thrown out, and another special election is being held on August 11th. They want to use a 2023 map for the special election and general November for the purpose of erasing districts with black majorities in the state. Another result of the disastrous Louisiana versus Callis Supreme Court decision. The action by the Alabama legislature and governor is still being fought in courts, so who knows what map will be allowed by November. As for Georgia, they had 2 approved candidates making into their runoff election, Amanda Hallowell in the 1st and Case Norton in the 7th. Hopefully voters in those districts will make them the nominees for November. In addition to these runoffs, 2 other states were supposed to be voting this day, but Virginia moved their primary date back in February. Their new election day is on August 4th. This is another state going back and forth with map changes. Although their map change was done by a direct vote of the people, their state Supreme Court overturned the will of the people. If Virginia's governor, Abigail Spanberger, had a real spine, she should ignore the courts and go forward with the people's map. But don't hold your breath. That brings us to the other state voting on June 16th and the topic for the 27th episode in our series, the state of Oklahoma. They have a population of slightly over 4 million people, giving them 5 seats in the House. Their 5 representatives, along with their 2 senators and governor, are all Republicans. I hope the people of Oklahoma have learned by now through recent events that elected Republicans do not have the best interests of the people as their main priority. Sadly, neither do a majority of MAGA Republican voters. If elected Democrats did prioritize the needs of the people, fascism would have never gained power. We need to replace both MAGA Republicans and corporatist Democrats. Unfortunately, not every race will have that option. In the 1st district, the candidate is running unopposed. Their website's policy section is so vague to the point it can be summarized as they are for good things and against bad things. What are those things? Who knows? At best, they are either just terrible at campaigning, or at worst, they're an empty suit to do the bidding of the oligarchy and others in the Epstein class. In the 4th district, there is a similar worry with the 2 candidates running in that district. I wasn't impressed by either of them. But if you live in that district and want to know more about your options, the 2 candidates did recently participate in this live forum where they discussed a wide range of policy topics. The biggest problem we'll see as we review these races is the majority of the voting population in Oklahoma may just be too far gone in the MAGA cult. If these seats have any chance of flipping, it will take candidates to inspire tens of thousands of more people to vote in November. Those who have previously given up on the process and normally don't vote. In the other 3 districts and for U.S. Senate, there are candidates in Oklahoma who are running to improve your lives, and if they are putting in the work, they will bring out those voters. Before learning more about these candidates, we'll start with the process the candidates and voters must navigate to win. Oklahoma uses a standard partisan process, like in most states. There is one exception being that state law allows the political parties to decide who can participate. As of September 2025, the Democratic Party's primary is semi-closed, while Republicans is closed. The difference being independent voters can vote in the Democratic primary if they want to. If they wanted to vote in the Republican primary, they would have to change their affiliation to Republican. Winning the primary requires a majority of votes, meaning at minimum 50% plus 1 vote. If no candidate reaches that amount, the top 2 vote earners will move on to a runoff election. New voters had 25 days before June 16th to register to vote. Sadly, we are past the May 22nd deadline. The primary on June 16th will be determined by registered Democrats and independent voters. It's understandable why millions of Americans don't want to register or vote for Democrats. They have violated the people's trust and have provided little to no vision for how to make our lives better. As I spotlight candidates throughout this series, good candidates will have these policies on their campaign websites. Great candidates will be discussing these policies nonstop at town halls and other in-person events with their communities. Now, this list is clearly not detailed nor includes every policy. This is my attempt to outline the priorities that also fit onto one screen. Not every approved candidate is going to agree on everything, but the more the better. If a candidate doesn't have a policy page or any social media presence, That's the first and final red flag, and I move on to the next candidate to research. On the other hand, any candidate who has a decent policy page and has been endorsed by any one of the 10 trusted political groups will be an approved candidate in most cases. Occasionally, there may be other reasons where I won't agree and will explain on a case-by-case basis. Most times this happens when there are multiple progressives running in the same race. When you are looking for congressional candidates to support, there are some other red flags to be aware of. When candidates speak only about how they aren't Donald Trump or not a Republican, that is not a campaign message. Millions of Americans, myself included, are tired of that political non-answer. Saying vague platitudes and cliches, as so often said by spineless and corrupt Democrats, is also unacceptable. One important example to pay attention to is the language candidates use around healthcare. Vague statements like, "I support healthcare," and then provide no other supporting details. It's no longer acceptable. Do they support fixing the system by implementing Medicare for all? Or do they only support the for-profit corporate healthcare structure that continues to harm millions of people every day? Even the phrase universal healthcare, which originally has been used to describe Medicare for all or a single-payer insurance plan, is now being used by more centrists and liberals to describe their public option plans, usually saying, "Oh, I support universal healthcare through a public option." That would have been great 10 to 15 years ago, but we can do so much better. We must demand a single-payer insurance program to end the death and misery caused by the for-profit system. If we're going to improve lives, we the people need to elect better representatives who will fight to make that happen. Let's now discuss the candidates in Oklahoma who will do just that. In the 2nd District, Erik Terwey is the approved candidate. He's running a progressive campaign and has been endorsed by citizens' impeachment. This district, like most in Oklahoma, will certainly not be easy, bordering on not possible to win. In 2024, the Republican incumbent won with 74.2% of the vote. It's unlikely any Dem will flip this seat, but if you support Erik Terwey in the primary, you'll have the best chance in November. In the 3rd District, Jules Roberson is the approved candidate. No endorsements from the trusted groups at this time, but a policy page that met the requirements. In 2024, the Democrats didn't even have a candidate. When they did run one in 2022, they only earned 25.5% of the vote. This seat, again, may just be unwinnable, but Jules Roberson would be the best candidate to support in the primary. And in the general election, who knows? With the right combination of enough demoralized Republicans not voting and enough independents and non-voters that show up for the Democratic candidate on Election Day in November, we could see many unlikely seats flip, as long as those Democratic candidates, like Jules Roberson, provide a policy platform to vote for. In the 5th District, the approved candidate is Trey Martin. At the time of this recording, no endorsements from any of the approved groups. Although, I would assume Our Revolution might endorse him soon, seeing as how Trey Martin was endorsed by Bernie Sanders. I hope they and other progressive groups endorse Trey Martin soon, as this district could be reasonably flipped. In 2024, the Republican won with 60.7% of the vote. 20 points, about 70,000 votes, made the difference in this district. Again, by no means easy, but it's certainly closer than some of the other districts we've seen thus far. If the primary voters support Trey Martin on June 16th, then he is the candidate who could earn enough support to win again in November. The last race we'll discuss in Oklahoma is for the U.S. Senate. Out of the 5 candidates running, the best option is Nikila Thomas. She's endorsed by citizens' impeachment. In 2022, the Republican James Lankford won with 64.3% of the vote. It's not impossible, just, again, extremely unlikely. But if Nikila Thomas wins in the primary, she's the candidate with the best chance of earning more votes in November. And there you have it, folks, the secular lefty approved candidates for Oklahoma. Hopefully in their state, they have more people who want a better future than there are MAGA cultists. If there are, then to win in November, these are the best candidates to support and vote for on June 16th. But what do you think? Is there any important information I missed? And who will you be voting for? Let me know in the comments. The next state's voting is a block of 3 on June 23rd. They include Maryland, New York, and Utah. The last state voting in June is Colorado on the 30th. Stay tuned for more primary info on those upcoming states. Be sure you're subscribed and ring that bell to be notified of my newest videos. If you found anything I said in today's video useful, please give it a like and share it everywhere. Together, we can make Americans more educated, and hopefully that will result in better election outcomes. Until the next video, please consider checking out my other work on this channel. Any additional watch time and shares will help the channel reach more people and is greatly appreciated. Thank you again for listening. Take care.